everybody. It is Mike Levin, and I am in my Mike Levin SEO journal. And I've been working on one today because it is time to rework my everyday SEO tools, which I have moved around to different places. Pipulate had been for many years the main location for all the tools, but now it's been deployed a while. There's some people using it out there. It's got a very particular API, and I don't want to go breaking it on people. So I am now recycling a package I've had in the past called mlseo. Now, the thing about it is I'm going to be replacing everything. It's going to be a copy-paste job from some of the new stuff I was doing in a repo called SEO Kata, right? So, you know, I recently have made SEO Kata. Which contains all my recent work. So it's mostly copy and paste, but it is a chance to show you nbdev. This is something I talk about. I'm new to nbdev, as I'm sure a lot of people out there might even just be hearing it for the first time. And so it really is a way to turn Jupyter notebooks into importable packages by other Jupyter notebooks or other python.py files. It's kind of the bridge between the notebook world, which is a lot about documentation like I'm doing right here, and the code world, which I'll be filling in here. So to jump right into it, this is all that exists right now. I have now done nbdev new inside this directory. So okay, yeah, so got that showing here. Let's see, where do I want to start on this? Yeah, nbdev.fast.ai, nbdev.fast.ai. Just Googling on nbdev will usually always produce this site as the first option. It's a good starting point, and it's something that you have to pip install. So you pip install nbdev, just like any other pip installable package. And I've already done that. So if I were to do that here, so I have two sides to it really. You can see this is Python 3.10 on Ubuntu. So this is the Windows subsystem for Linux. So I have pip installed nbdev here. And I'll do a -u to make sure it updates all its components, and you'll see it spin by and say everything's already satisfied. Now that's the Windows subsystem for Linux here. This is like a different operating system than really what Jupyter is running on here on Windows, because, you know, path of least resistance, we use the Jupyter that goes for the operating system instead of some convolution to use, say, a Linux version of Jupyter, which I could do. But so now I have this dichotomy. I've got two sides to the world. I have the Linux side and I've got the Windows side. So all this pip installable stuff here in the standalone version of Jupyter, you'll notice here I have installed Jupyter as the standalone version. This is not through Anaconda. It's a little bit different than the way most people are using Jupyter these days. And its terminal is just not ready for prime time. One of the things people do often is open a terminal like this, and then you would pip install nbdev -u using that same exact command, but you can see the red text here. It's apparently Windows PowerShell. So I say sayonara to this. We are going to be living without the equivalent of a conda shell, conda prompt. It's been going away mostly anyway. It turns out that from just a normal notebook, and I'll put an untitled in here, most of this stuff in here had been from a prior version of mlseo. So you can see this is the old package. I used to work directly in the .py files directly from Vim. So Vim mlseo.py, and this is the file that used to be one of my old, and you can see how short it is. It's only 125 lines, but that's how little at times I've needed to do very simple SEO work, crawls and scrapes and stuff like that. But now the new way is it's this file here, which is this file here. I have two 00_core.ipynb IPython notebooks loaded. This is from SEO Kata that I was telling you about, where a lot of my stuff has been, refining recently, and this is where I'll be copying and pasting from. So I'll be copying and pasting things like this, extract meta, over to here. Now I'm going to do it very cautiously, and I'm going to do it in a way that sprinkles the nbdev fairy dust into this repo, which is one of the first times I'm doing this. So of those files that are in there, ls, some of these I had created myself, and they were there from a previous repo, like that, and the one I just showed you, this. And from the moment I did nbdev _new, it probably won't work again, or it'll give me some warnings. Maybe it'll reinitialize it. I get to find out. Well, there you go. Executing this thing here, configuring nbdev. I didn't customize anything yet, so it's okay to have rerun this. And then success. Hooks are installed and repos git config is now trusted. Because mlseo is a private repo over on the GitHub side, I had to do some token stuff. I had to put some token somewhere to indicate that it was okay for, it was an environment variable from where I am doing this. It probably is an environment variable that's living in this shell right now that I had to export. But I won't get bogged down in those details. In fact, I'm documenting it as I go. This place where I'm writing my documentation is one of those GitHub IO locations. So it happens to be mlseo. No, it's my full name, mike11seo.com, my full name plus this. And it hasn't, you can see it hasn't been updated since August 30th of 2021, but I have done some updates over here in the journal. So I'll just drop out for a second. Launching mlseo git push. And this will be a before and after. There's a system called Jekyll, and as long as I didn't make any stupid syntax errors, that should be converted now. Not yet. There it goes. So this is my journal entry just from today, Thursday, February 17th, 2022. And this is about where I'm up to. You saw me type SEO Kata contains all my recent work. I'm new to nbdev, so it brings you right up to current. You're seeing me create this mike11seo.com website through the GitHub IO system that uses Jekyll transforms, and it's currently one long page because that's how I like to keep it in a single file as I work on this. Now I'm thinking about using a utility called cog, which will allow me to do all kinds of after the fact manipulations to blogify it, make a more traditional, table of contents and index, and break the posts up over multiple pages, maybe figure out the headlines and stuff that I haven't put in there from inspecting the text. So that's exactly the types of things, like keyword extraction is exactly the kind of thing this job is for. And in fact, I should read through that documentation I was just making in Jupyter here to show you what this is about. You can see this is a markdown cell, so I'm just starting with the documentation. And the purpose of this package is so that I can express SEO tasks in a light and breezy fashion. Legibly and briefly is what I said here. And I used to keep separate GitHub repos one for every type of SEO deliverable that I produced. Then every project started to look the same. So now I import mlseo and keep notebooks short. This mlseo package provides a number of functions and examples to easily accomplish, and then I go down the list: SERP scraping, site crawling, Chrome automation, HTML element extraction, JavaScript value extraction, connecting to most Google services in general, but then specifically pulling Google Analytics and Search Console data, very important. And then another thing is iterating through all the accounts, properties, and views just to know what you have control of from Search Console and Analytics. And then, you know, generically manipulating Google Sheets. It's amazing how often things end up in Google Sheets in these processes. Connecting to various SEO tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush, connecting to social media APIs, and then performing concurrent URL fetches using concurrency in some SEO crawling type work, often chunked. We'll talk about that later. And this file that I'm actually on right now contains all the functions. Well, it will. You know, I'm talking ahead. You're gonna see me paste some stuff down here and actually use it. I'll figure out stuff that you know, I'll do the test with. And in fact, I'm going to be starting the key important thing here is to get the heck out of the mlseo directory. So we're going to be creating a package as soon as possible using nbdev, so I can create another directory and import mlseo there, and then I'll be able to bop back and forth knowing that I can work in here. I even say that it is intended to be exported as a package, which can be imported from other notebooks in this folder or elsewhere. Because people really will need to explicitly know this. There's a lot of nuance that comes into play right away. And it's really just a more organized way to work, which keeps this file as pure as possible with just the functions and bare bones examples. I can actually put the stuff that's going to become the package in here, and then I can also use the package right in here with both tests. That's important to note. I want to add tests right from birth of this package. So assert true. Yeah, it succeeds. So now I have testing in here. Every time this is pushed to GitHub, these tests will actually run, and a report will be sent back, as simple as assert true is. But this is the kind of nbdev magic that is present. Okay, the nbdev magic. So this is a concession that needs to be made in order for automatic documentation to be able to be generated from out of here. So the automatic creation of documentation is a big point of nbdev. And then this I put in here for perfect code formatting. This thing called black is a code formatter, a linter, a Pip 8 enforcer. And I use this on iPhone a lot, and I'm going to encourage other people to use it because Carnets is free, I think, and it's great. But you don't want to try and run black on it. And if you don't have the code formatter yet, you do have to pip install nblack. So I'll mention this kind of stuff as I go. The most common thing you want to do is restart kernel and clear all outputs. That usually doesn't bring a terminal to the front. There should be no terminal window in standalone Jupyter. That is a little bit disturbing. I'm going to close that and see if these things still run. Oh, it brings it up. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? Well, that is strange and not correct. So what I'm going to do is quit out. This stuff has all been auto-saved. I'm pretty confident. A loop like that while I'm live casting. So leave. And then on my keyboard, Control-Alt J. It used to be L for labs, but I moved it back to J. And that'll relaunch Jupyter Lab. It'll bring back in the tabs I already had. And that mystery stuff that hides the Jupyter server should have already happened. I'm going to try that. Kernel, restart kernel and clear all outputs, restart. Hope that that window doesn't pop up. It hasn't. So this is bleeding edge now for Python execution environments. Standalone Jupyter is a game changer. However, it's very early in the process, and there's a lot of bleeding edge stuff going on. So this ran fine. This ran fine. And so to demonstrate to you what Code Black does a little bit is one of my favorite things to do is to do, triple quotes like that. And then you can do a list where you can go, item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is a really easy way to copy and paste lists into Python without all that square bracket formatting. So what you do is then you split it on the \n, which is the invisible line return, and you'll get a list back. Now watch what it does to the formatting of this. This is the before, and this is the after. It turns the triple single quotes into triple double quotes, and it did this weird sort of formatting here of the parenthesed \n. So I can live with that, but the upside is that all code of everyone running Black looks exactly the same. It's the uncompromising Pip 8 linter. So I'm going to get rid of that because you saw what that does. This documentation, I'll just keep going back to and refining it to sort of guide me. It's kind of like the same way I'm using this journal over here, except this journal is cumulative and blog-like, and here it's going to be just the one best copy that people should look at to know what the heck is going on. I have other versions of it that got way too long. It's part of why I'm redoing this, where it's just writing and droning on. And look at all these imports. Most of these imports don't really need to be done there. It's just stuff that we use for templating. Like it's a suggested thing to template. So one of the things I'm going to do probably is, instead of doing unnecessary imports here, saying here's the master list of stuff that gets imported when you're doing SEO work. So to get started, the most important thing is a before and after here, where I'm going to go into the terminal, I'm going to clear it, I'm going to ls it, and I'm going to show you some of the stuff in here. As I mentioned, some of the stuff I added, but once I did that nbdev new, which I won't do yet again, it added settings.ini. This is the most important file we're going to have to look at and modify stuff to in order to, do a bunch of stuff like automatically build a package. So this mlseo directory here was automatically created. It uses the same name as the package itself, so your GitHub repo name is going to be reproduced here as a subfolder name, which is the pip installer, pip install something. That's the Python packaging index. This is the convention they use here. You see, they make a directory by the same name as the repo. Now the fact I have this one here is unfortunate, and it will be going away. So I'm going to cd into that nested mlseo, and you'll probably see a file in there because I did already run some utilities, but I'm going to remove everything in that location. So we're in that nested location deep mlseo / mlseo, and there's nothing in here. Now I'm going to cd one directory up, and I am going to nbdev build docs, first docs, because it's a two-step process. Docs is plural, and it runs through all your .ipynb files and creates documentation for it. It outputs it, and it puts it into a directory here, I believe that it created, called docs, cd docs. And so for every .ipynb file, there's now also going to be a .html file, which is the documentation. It's really quite interesting, amazing how it does it, because it extracts the documentation using certain rules from the notebook. So you You get some level of documentation for free. But instead of nbdev build docs, the other one is nbdev build lib. And now we can go into cd mlseo, that subdirectory again, and we can look in there. And you can see there's 3 files there. The very standard init.py that almost always gets created for Python packaging index, you know, stuff. PyCache, which is where your temporary compiles get put into. And this, which I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it does seem like a bunch of mapping that's going to be used. I think it's going to be used to maybe make autocomplete work properly with functions that you create. We can look at it. That's what's in there. Yeah, it's going to be a bunch of mappings, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so you can see one thing that's not in here is core.py. Now, that is what's going to end up in here when I run this command, but with the proper comment thrown into the notebook, you see. So there's a magic comment here that extracts the .py file from here. And this other one that I was working on in the SEO Kata location has this. That's why I'll be copying and pasting so much from out of here. And that's it. It's the comment export. Hash symbol, space, lowercase export. And that will make a cell, make the contents of that cell export to a package. By what name? Really the same name as you use here, the same name that is the same name that you use here. But where does that get defined? It's not parsing it out of the file name. Remember that settings.ini file I mentioned to you? So Vim settings.ini, very important to edit here. And there it is, libname, mlseo. That's going to be the library name. So I actually will might keep mlseo. I might end up changing it to core. We'll see in a moment. There's arguments for both. Eventually you want to import mlseo, but the way you organize it initially, it's sometimes better to use the word core. But I'll get to that in a moment. There is my email address. I had to edit it. I didn't overwrite the changes. When I did nbdev new, it kept what I had done before. It's important to note that both the copyright field has to be edited in, such as it were. There was a hashtag in front of it. Copyright 2022. Michael, then my full name. And I'll keep all this stuff. Oh, I had to also edit in description, right? I had to remove the hashtag on that line. So that line there and that line there I had to unedit out. And then everything else you can kind of keep. It's bad form to change licenses on people, but you know, I just want to forge ahead. Sometimes I change that to an MIT license, one of the most liberal licenses out there. And some other stuff. I'll be looking at this as I go, but these are the details of how you automatically do a pip, a push to PyPy so that other people can pip install your stuff. Right, quit. And since those things are set correctly in settings.ini, I should be able to do nbdev build lib. And it converted these 3, and I'm going to use this other directory. Oh, I'm already in that nested location, so I'll ls there. And still, oh, there's a none.py. See, the comment went in, but I don't know if I saved it. And there's a step that I probably want to, yeah, export is nothing. I don't think, okay, yeah, so save, print foo, save. Okay, so a step that I have been skipping, but you probably don't want to skip, is nbdev clean nbs. And what this does is it strips out all this metadata. In fact, if I were to go back here and do something, it probably is going to warn me about the file has been changed underneath of it. I'll try to, yeah, see, if I try saving it, it says GitHub, it's changed on the drive since the last time it was opened or saved. Do you want to overwrite it? Fine, I'll overwrite it. But then all I do is I run nbdev clean nbs again, and that gets it ready for a git commit. Git commit, preparing to export package. Now it's just exporting it locally on my machine from the notebook into a subfolder as a .py file, but that's what I'm actually preparing to do. And I'll build that lib again. I'll look over here, and it still says none, vim none. There is my print foo. So the file, it's getting the name of none because I have none set. So what I need to do is figure out where the word core or mlseo gets put in. And we do that by just looking at my last version here and look at the export. And I do believe there was the word default somewhere around here. I'm not sure if it was in the notebook or in settings.ini, but default. Yeah, it is definitely not something that's in the notebook. So I'm going to look at the one more terminal. People sometimes use tabs for terminals. I just don't see it. It's stupid when you have such an easy virtual desktop and you can have a whole full terminal per screen. So anyway, cd into I guess that was SEO Kata where I was doing that. Vim Settings.ini, and the lib name here, SEO Kata. Default. Yeah. So this is where we're going to look at the documentation. Welcome to nbdev. It's the only mention of default on their welcome page. Show doc, convert to HTML, extract test, command line functions, clean notebook, minimal example. Lib name, description, author, user. Values and settings are propagated to variant. Default export card. The first cell of the notebook is not required, but it is there to highlight an important feature. The number at the beginning of the file name is not required. It is a convention we use to keep notebooks in a desired order. So they name it that, and then they match a comment here to that word card. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to be putting in this sort of comment, but with the word core in here. So I guess that goes just kind of like one of these. Yet another field that needs to be explained. So I don't like that about nbdev. Maybe I'll try putting those down beneath the documentation. We do want to overwrite that. And now we do nbdev clean nbs, nbdev build lib, pop over here, ls, and there's our core file. All right, so we're going to remove none because that was an accident. And if I do git status, you can see all the files that nbdev added, right? Because these were not in the pre-existing GitHub repo. It added all these things, the YAML file for like Docker deployment. It does a lot of work for you, really. And there should be the core file in there. Oh, because it's in a subdirectory, is it not showing here? Docs mlseo. Well, it's showing the directory mlseo. If we do a git status from inside there, maybe it shows us a difference. Interesting. Well, I do want all of this now as part of the new repo. I don't want to lose any of this each time I regenerate docs. The docs, it's all part of the repo. So I am going to do Git Add. First we double check that there's nothing that we really don't want. Yeah, we'll keep all that. Git Add asterisk. Git status. And it's all green. It's been added. Untracked files, there's JSON, get attributes, that's fine. Git commit, added nbdevs files, git push. And so now all that's up in GitHub, so it's secure. I should kind of show you before and afters in GitHub to just show you that this is actually, you know, interacting with a site out there to make it work. Okay, so now the import. So naturally we can use it in location, right? So, well, it's not even a function. Let's turn that into a function. Def foo. Print bar. So the function named foo will print bar. Well, I guess all functions need an open close parenthesis. And see that extra space it put in there? That extra space was black doing its thing. And so save, overwrite, nbdev clean, nbs, nbdev build lib. And now, now I can demonstrate how I can use this locally, of course, outside. It doesn't have to be outside this block, but outside the export block, you can just do free experimental stuff. You can use your foo function, and it prints bar. Okay, so this is how you can use the stuff I'm about to copy and paste in here to actually perform SEO deliverables, to do scrapes and crawls and whatever, right here in the thing that becomes the exported package. However, the much more logical thing to do at this point is to create a new notebook out here. And so long as you're in the directory you intend, when you hit this plus sign and you get the launcher and you create a new notebook, that becomes a new notebook inside the directory you're actually on. And I'll rename it immediately into, test module, testing. It's just testing. I'm just doing testing. So it's already loaded. And so I can import. Now I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work, I'm going to solve this thing. This is so important to solve. Import mlseo. Does it? Yeah, look at that. It imported it. Things are in the correct location. Now I'm going to show you why I imported that. Even though it's called, it's importing it because I have mlseo.py sitting right there. That's not good news. Oh, wait, it might have got it from the right spot. Look at that. Look at that. Well, we can certainly test that by going mlseo.foo. It has no attribute name foo, so maybe it's not grabbing the right thing. I can test if it's grabbing the right thing by well, I can just look inside of it. Dir mlseo. Always think to do a dir. And there really is only that much stuff, which is not my big package. This does seem like it should be my one that has the foo function in it. So I'm going to look inside of it. Vim core. It's actually core.py. there's my foo function. So how could it be? Here it is. This tells me what's going on. When I look at the path to it, see this init.py? This is what gets loaded from out of the directory named after the import. So when you do an import like that, there's an order of operations. There's a pretty good chance it's going to be grabbing for this one here, which happens to have the same name. And that is a very disturbing ambiguity. So I'm going to do a git move mlseo.py. And you can see I've already done this process before. There's mlseo deprecate.py. So I'm going to move it to mlseo deprecate2.py. Git commit renamed old mlseo.py. Git push. It's always a good time to commit and push, just in case you were wondering. And now some ambiguity is gone, but it's always a good idea to restart kernel and clear all outputs. That should actually be on a hotkey. It's not because of the way I've been reinstalling Jupyter Lab Standalone Edition so frequently recently. So I import the mlseo and I show it. And again, it's still coming out of that init.py, which is what's expected. There's no foo function available, and a dir of it is extremely minimal. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to another example where I did use nbdev successfully to deploy a package. I was very proud of it. My first time doing it was on a package called oauth. So cd /o-auth. See that? ls. So it's, very similar. It's another nbdev powered location, and one that I actually did push up into the into PyPy. So my practice on being able to do this has been on simple, nothing simple about OAuth 2 authentication for Google services. Such a big stumbling block on so many projects. So I solved it systemically for myself and as a favor to the world. But what I want to show you here is, the project. There's your 00core.ipynb. I'm following the same naming convention as Jeremy Howard recommends in all this nbdev documentation. And you can see the package is named OAuth for OAuth authentication, but OAwful, right? OHAWI. So anyway, there's that nested subdirectory. So I can cd into there. And then what I'm really trying to show you is the treatment of the init.py, one of the big tricks, so that when you import OAuth, what it really imports is core.py. How? Well, it's always automatically importing this. So vim init.py, lo and behold, from core import asterisk, right? That's it. And there's a version number there. I think that gets put in automatically. In fact, I even thought this file got put in automatically, but I started by cloning a template from out of GitHub. I did not do nbdev new. I did not use that command, nbdev_new. For OAuth, I actually cloned it out of the GitHub nbdev repository, which you can do. That's another way of doing it. But now that I have the contents of that file, I can go into the nested one here, vim init.py. Oh, look, it did put the version in by automatically. So there, from core import star. Once again, we have to restart the kernel. There's ways to avoid that. There's re-import things. There's ways that you can re-import packages, but an import again won't do it. You can't just import again and have it updated magically. Well, actually, one thing I want to check is when I regenerate these files, I want to make sure that I don't overwrite this. Okay, that's still there. That's good news. But now that my kernel has been restarted, I don't trust that kernel restart and clear outputs. I like to clear all outputs so it knows it really did what I asked it to. Import mlseo, pulling from the same location. But foo is available. See, foo outputs bar. And when we dir that, you can see it's got 2 more contents than it used to, right? So, yay. Next step. Now I have a place to copy and paste stuff because I know it's going to go over. This copy and pasting that I was telling you about is actually happening here. Now, in the future, this importing of mlseo will be able to work from outside the mlseo directory because it will be pip installable, or I could use virtual envs, or there's a whole bunch of ways to do it. But I plan on pushing it up to the PyPy repo so that it's really easy for myself and my coworkers and for the whole world, I guess. So next step, let's get some functions in here. Now, when I did this on OAuth, I used this really wonderful object-oriented style that worked for me there, and I'm not going to do it again. It's nice, big packages that lend themselves to the object-oriented methodology can benefit from it, but this project is not going to be one of them. So, re-importing a package for rapid iteration. I guess we ought to get that out of the way because kind of important. So I know that reloading is something I do. Not there, apparently. Where have I been doing this recently? Definitely under SEO Kata external packages. Well, we'll just do it together. You know, that's just an extra step. That showed you how it goes into the package. We don't have to do our testing from testing. For right now, I'm just going to do it straight in here, and we're going to put bare bones examples in here. So let's start out with this easy, simple function from here. I think I changed that from Markdown to Raw. I'll put that back to Markdown. And the most simple thing I want to start out with is good URL. And there will be some dependencies that it'll complain about, but it's always good to check if you have a good URL. Such a good starting point. So instead of the foo, we don't need that foo in there. We put good URL in there. I execute it. Now, it's definitely going to choke, but I can test good URL with nothing in it. Is missing one positional argument. We'll put a foo in there. Oh, false. Look at that. Why is that working? Do I not import anything? URL, nah, see. Yeah, it's because of that try. This is a silent pass. I should really not do that kind of stuff. Maybe I'll fix my silent passing while I do my copy and paste. Things should not pass silently. And so I'll get a more accurate error here. URL parse is not defined. So one of the imports that is going to happen here, and I guess my imports will be right at the top here, right? So one of the most important imports is URL parse. And I import a few things here, but I think I'm going to build it up as we go because I don't want to do anything extra that I don't have to do. So really what I want is this. And I might end up having to grab some of those other pieces there, but we're going to start our imports out nice and easy. Okay, so foo, false. It's not a good URL. http://foo, false. .com. Oh, there it comes back. It comes back with the URL itself if it's a valid URL. So if it's not valid, so what is it? Makes it not valid, an extra slash there. It's false, but if it is valid, it comes back with the original URL. That's a fairly common convention I use throughout my libraries. It makes code short and easy and clean. So that's one piece of it. And as I said before, when is a good time to commit? Now is always a good time to commit. So I'll probably have to make a script out of it, but it goes nbdev clean nbs nbdev, no, and then it's just git commit added good URL function. Git push. All right, so that's kind of it. I'm going to be building this thing up piece by piece, doing a little sample with each piece of code that is important, an important part of my SEO career and life. So there's good URL. And we're just going to kind of go down following my same examples that I use here all the time. There's going to be a lot of these overwrite messages because of the clean NBS. So the next thing that I really need to do is an import, and I need to document the imports as I go so that I can build it. I mean, there's ways to do it afterwards, but I'm working in a pretty dirty environment because it's not easy to do separate virtual envs under the new standalone Jupyter. This is a place where I've chosen to be bleeding edge, and I'm bleeding a little. So lack of easy access to and control of Python virtual environments is one of the prices of that. So if I were to like pip list, you'd probably, if it works in a shell here, I think it does. Yeah, there. I got a lot of stuff pip installed on here, and so the whole process of finding my dependencies, unless I use a special package that interrogates this isolated thing to see what gets referred to, I can't use just pip freeze and the more common techniques to do this. So just as good practice as like documentation, I'm going to make a list of the imports that are going to be necessary. So I think I already mentioned Black, the code editor. That's our first one because we're going to keep those things nice and clean. And then this next one, and then I'll put the -u at the end because if anyone ever copies and pastes from here, I want it to be updating their system as well. So that's the Black requirement. Now the next one is so important. I have a tab open. I wished that there was some other way to do it other than SQLite dict. SQLite dict is going to be my answer to this thing that's coming up. But I would have preferred to have used fsspec because fsspec is this big thing used in all these different packages and it's not going away. It's a mission critical API used in a lot of different projects. But when I went to look at the implementations it supported, SQLite is not amongst them. Okay, it works with a lot of different cloud and different file systems, FTP, Hadoop, mostly file system oriented stuff, GitHub file system, memory file system. So if there's reads and writes, fsspec is a way to abstract away implementation so that you can wire your reads and writes to different things. Now, that's the kind of functionality I want, but for key value pair dictionaries, for lightweight local dictionaries, things that you would normally use shelves for. So it's a long discussion here, but I'm just going to demonstrate how it works. SQLite dict is the magic piece. So pip install Sqlite dict-u. I'll actually execute that just to make sure I have the command right. I know I have all the requirements met, the requirements already satisfied, and this is a fairly stable package. This is something that does one thing and does it well, and really needs to be demonstrated because we're going to do it before and after. I'll use a file name that will alphabetize close to the top, sorted by name. So import Sqlite dict from Sqlite dict as SQL dict. See if I got that right. I didn't get it right. Okay, I'll lift it from over here. From Sqlite dict, import Sqlite dict as SQL dict. Okay, I was in the neighborhood. This is such an important line because you could just import Sqlite dict, but all we need is this thing here, and its syntax is too long. So it's a SQL dict. It's a SQL dict. I wish they got, so I'm overriding their built-in API a little bit just to use a really short name here. And this is so common that I will put into the imports that I'm starting to accumulate here. I do them in descending order of line, length, and total violation of PEP 8, but there's no order dependency here, and you can always re-execute imports. See that? Execute. This is something that confuses Python newbies a lot. The Python system is really made so that you can always re-import, and it doesn't nuke your system. It does that weird stuff that has to be done to make those types of imports work. But now that we're sitting on top of this, you use the context manager. Say I had some values that I wanted to store. Just for the sake of argument, I'm going to import requests. And then I'm going to do a response equals request.get, and I don't know, I do my own personal site, https://mikelev.in. It's a pretty big page, but it's now loaded into that response. I could show the response. It gets a success 200. I could show the text, huge amount of text. It's just a raw HTML there. But now say I wanted to save that somewhere. Say I wanted to plop it onto the hard drive. And say I did this for 2 different sites. Maybe the site I was just showing you that I'm working on. It's mlseo.com. Oh, I did that as the same name. I want that to be resp2. So I'll make this resp1, and I'll make this resp2. And they're 2 different sites. You can see that if I wanted to show the length of the resp1.text. That's how many bytes are in that first website. And the second website is much shorter, I know, just because there's not as much on the page, I think. Maybe it's grown longer since. Yeah, no, it's much shorter. But all that HTML and all the stuff, all the response codes is actually sitting in there, sitting in that resp1 and resp2. Now say we wanted that on the hard drive later on to say, what did it look like? That's a 1-page crawl is what just occurred there. It doesn't have the graphics resources and stuff, but everything that would show in view source in a browser is sitting inside of these 2 objects for those 2 sites. So with SQL dict file name ADB for a database, a.db, a database, as db, you give it an arbitrary file name. We're going to refer to it as db. And now you can see the before. There is no a.db here, okay? But if I say db with the square brackets, because it's key value pair, it's just a dictionary. See, it's just a dictionary with persistent back-ending, we're going to say the URL, right? Because the URL is what becomes the key. The database entry with this URL contains this data. Now you will see the file get created if I were to run this, right? That a.db showed right there. But if you were to try and reproduce that process, it wouldn't actually show because it lacks a commit. I'm going to show you, I'm going to, you know, give a spoiler. I'm going to say data equals, and it's probably even going to be a key error. See that key error there? That's because I didn't put a commit under here. db.commit. I believe it's open close brackets. Now I do that. Now I do that. Now I'm sitting on data. Data is the same as resp1. Now if I were to try and pull out resp2 using this other key, it will create an error because I did not commit it yet. And it's the same key error. But if I were to add it to the database, copy paste, and then change, oh, that's the output I was showing. It's this commit one. I need to copy paste. I put the key in. And that is going to be equal to resp2. And so I'll change pulling the data out. This will become data1. And I'll show you the length of the data.text. There's that larger number that we saw up here before, so you know that data1 contains the mikelev.in site. And I'll say data2 now is equal to that key coming out of the database. And if we were to check its length, oh, I should have done data1 there, still the same number. And these are the hazards of notebooks. This is why you restart the whole kernel every once in a while. And the length of data2, and there you have it. This is databases. This is persistent database manipulation. If you were to look at that from the desktop, this is not the desktop, you would see that that file is, let's see, that big. These are bytes. So it looks like that might be 96, 1.6 megs maybe? Hard to say. I forget how that works. Anyway, we can look at it on the desktop like I was alluding to. Going into my GitHub folder. And from my GitHub folder, we go into mlseo. I know that is going to be very tiny on the screen, but there's our file. And the size is 160 kilobytes. Yeah, 160 kilobytes. So those 2 pages is not even a megabyte. It sounded awful big. It's just 160K. And so this is just such an important concept. I mean, I know it's like I'm talking SEO, but what am I doing with all this database stuff? Trust me, making dictionaries persistent is way up there. So what I'm going to do here is, you know, this was all just for showing you that stuff. I'm going to delete all that out. That has absolutely no bearing on us, except that I probably will make one of those bare bones examples now. So it's like, you know, sequential things you can run. Use each function and use a test. So it goes something like this. Kernel, restart kernel and clear all outputs. I should bind that to a keyboard shortcut. There's a little bonus, maybe I'll throw that in. Settings. Themes, language, autosave, show at console, run keystrokes. Text editor indentation. Well, I'll probably do it later. It's going to be in here somewhere. Advanced Settings Editor. It's an Advanced Settings. So you get these nested things here. You can see it's a really web-oriented, nested thing going on in Jupyter Lab. It's quite a change from Jupyter Notebook. And then your keyboard shortcuts are right here. And so here's all your default keyboard shortcuts going down here, and then here's where you kind of override them. And it's kind of bad form, but you know you're going to get the object structure right if you copy and paste the whole thing. Now that's not anything you're going to want to keep there, but you are going to have some really nice examples to look at. So we're going to search for reset. Okay, so it highlights all the resets, so we can just scroll down and look for the highlights, right? A little bit stupid. It's going to be one of the edited out ones. So you see, one of the things we can really do here is since all these are not even options because they're actually live, they're running, we can edit those out and know that we've kept the shape of this JSON object very much intact. And that should allow us to just unedit out things in here that we actually want. I'm going to do a Control B to bring that back a little. That helps a lot. And oh, I hope this isn't too much of a red herring. Kernel. I saw a kernel in there. It's going to be kernel stuff. Restart, clear output. That's the one I want. Tab. Current directory. Note to disable a system define. Copy it to preferences and add the disabled key. Okay, well, anyway. I do believe I outsmarted myself with that structure. I think I'm just going to have to nuke most of this structure here. Paste in the one that I had, and then look for where things are active down here and see how they do it. See the general layout. See after this thing ends, shortcuts colon, okay? So it's a key, a list, a dictionary. That dictionary goes on for potential unlimited. So our structure is going to be shortcuts, command colon, notebook, just clear output. Oh, that list that starts here, dictionary, value. So the keys that control it go in there as well. Keys, command. Okay, so I already have the command. So it's really just the keys that I need to finish this entry. So it's shortcuts, open list, dictionary, close list. Okay, so there's an error, should have required property keys. It's actually telling me that. That's great. So I'll take a sample keys. And there's got to be a comma here, and that error should go away. I have something wrong with like nesting or something. List. Yeah, this is extra. As is that comma. No errors found. See that? Okay. Now Control Shift R. If that has no other meaning, I'll try that. Uppercase, since you're pressing the shift, I guess, right? Select your body. That sounds about right. Save. How do you save? Let me try Control Shift R. See if it takes the keyboard shortcut. Maybe I have to be in one of these. Yeah, restart kernel. See that? Cancel. So Control Shift R now is restarting the kernel. It's actually very important to frequently restart your kernel. So that was a worthwhile step. Now I hope I don't lose that every time I reinstall a new Jupyter Lab standalone. That's kind of a problem. But now Control Shift R, restart, and you can rapidly go back. You don't even need necessarily everything here if you don't want the code formatting. You certainly don't have to execute these things that are just for nbdev. And you don't have to try and redo any pip installs. But now you can do your imports, load things in memory, and now we can start to do tests and have the built-in tests. Remember this silly assert equals true. We'll get rid of that. We'll use good URL, and I'll immortalize my my personal website. Okay, so it just comes back with the name, but anything that's not empty or false, anything that's not falsy, will assert true. So the fact that that line even runs, that's a built-in test. I have testing built in now. Every time that this gets, pushed up to GitHub, it'll run these tests with these continuous integration hooks and nbdev added, and will report that it all worked correctly. In fact, email should be coming back now as whenever I commit, now that I have an assert in there. I'm going to do that, restart it. See, that's nice. It's nice having that keyboard shortcut. It comes naturally. Control Shift R to do that. It's also always a good practice before doing a git commit, but it doesn't really matter because you're going to do nbdev clean nbs, which is kind of the same thing, but more thorough, really. Git commit. What did I just do? I did something really big. Well, I added that shortcut. That was big, but that's not going to be on the git commit. I added an assert. Added first test. Git push. Now you'll hear unit tests and PyTest and all kinds of stuff. But simple assert statements just in line, here is testing. That's providing coverage. Good URL has at least one positive test here. And let's grab something else. So these things have confused me in the past, and I just think I'm going to code these up from scratch for the most part when I need them, because one-liners to load things from files and stuff. This is an important one. Extract apex, the registered domain of a thing. And in fact, that has a dependency that I haven't used elsewhere very much. If it's a good URL, parts equals extract, apex equals parts.domain. Interesting, parts.domain. I wonder if that's dependent on anything. I thought I was going to find a top TLD top or something as part of the dependencies, but maybe not. Pop this in here. Oh, it's going to be another function, right? So it goes here. Watch if I just put one line underneath. Whoops. I run it. Black is going to put a second line there. Oh, I don't think I ran black. I did not. Run. Oh, this went to one line because it's markdown. I'll keep that as raw for now. Run. There's your 2 lines because of the uncompromising editor. And so now we can test things. So we can try extract apex on, and now that we have the same domain name being used a few places, we'll just say, you know, test URL equals this string here. And now we can use test URL here. Helps if I run the code block. And we can use test URL here too. Extract apex. False. That does not seem right. Well, there's another one of them silent failings. I think we are going to find that import that I think is required here. It might be hidden somehow, but let's see why that returned false. Extract is not defined, right? So there's an extract function we need. Aha, that is where it's imported. I import just the extract specifically from TLD extract. Okay, that's an important one. I was wondering why it wasn't sticking out. So that's going to be one of your pip installs here. TLD extract. All right. There it is. That's the registered domain. Now, what if this was www.mikelevin.in? There, it still echoes back with the just that. So the assert test is a new assert test. I guess they can all be in one thing. Apex. And now instead of just returning back with anything, let's see if it's let's see what bad data in there looks like. False. So yeah, it would fail if it couldn't extract an apex. foo.com. Foo.com. Okay, so it doesn't need to be a fully qualified URL. That's very interesting. So we can set an equals to that, and as long as I keep my test URL like this, I should be able to test against that value. Right, so it passes. I'm going to try if that was www. Yeah, it should still pass because that command is going to strip out that stuff and make it equal. Oh, if I did www. Just put an X in there. Now the assert error. See that assert error? Because it would come back. It should come back with X mikelevin.in. So we take that out and our assert passes. And now we have some new good stuff in here. It looks like so little, but this is how you create these libraries. Look how little code that really is, and look at the techniques that are being used here. I'm taking out the one bad thing I've been doing, which is allowing errors to pass silently. But you know, return value equals false, right? You set a return. You know what you're going to be sending back is RV, single point of return. So you can manipulate things and then at the last moment set RV equal to what you want to send back. So there's some really good coding practices here. And now that I'm starting to use doc strings here, there should be some auto documentation made when I nbdev this. So another demonstration of nbdev. This is a good place to do another commit too. So. Oh, and I'll demonstrate it being used as a package. There's a few things I could demonstrate here. This is a legit package now with useful stuff inside of it. So save, nbdev clean, nbs, nbdev build docs. I'll build the docs and see if I can demonstrate. Okay, good, URL is not. Okay, so forget about making the docs for now. nbdev build lib, build our library. And now, in testing, Control-Shift-R, remember that wonderful keyboard shortcut? That's useful because now when we import mlseo, we want to make sure it's got the new stuff inside of it and without a re-import. And there they are, see? Extract apex and good URL. So we can do mlseo dot, extract apex foo.com. Oh, URL parse is not defined. Interesting. So, these are these other imports on URL parse. Why was it available? Oh, because of the, when the extraction occurs, only things that are in cells that have the word export are actually exported. So our imports are not being exported. Let's export our imports. And git commit exporting imports, just because I can't resist typing that. Git push. I should have cleaned NBS first. This is a perfect example of how repos get polluted because you forget to do the clean NBS step. It should be turned into a script. I shouldn't be doing all this manually, but I'm getting nbdev into my fingers. I'm getting the muscle memory here. So let's see. I should probably look at my chat to see if any of you people are typing at me. Yeah, not even a single person typing at me. I wonder if there's anyone following. Concurrent views 0. There's been a few people who've tuned in and stepped out. There's even been a like. So I'm gonna continue with this. This is going really well. I like this. Not everything needs to be some interactive experience. Most things in life are that are worth it are unidentifiable as worth it. That's why they're worth it. That's why everyone hasn't jumped on that bandwagon yet. So this is one of those things. nbdev build libs, build lib singular, testing, reset, import mlseo. Now I'll show you a trick. As asterisk. Oh, from mlseo import asterisk. So now you can still look inside of it. Oh, not defined, right? It's local. So if you were to want to see what was there, it would be global. Your local global. Globals. Globals. Should be in there. Thought it was going to be in there. Maybe it's locals. Maybe it's globals as a function. There they are. No, they're not. But as a function, you do get more coming up. Maybe it's locals. Not there. Maybe it's locals, but not as a function. Well, they're somewhere. I'm going to have to figure that out. Doesn't matter. Now we can do this, and there it is. See? Extract https:// I don't know, slides.google.com. Just google.com. That's the apex, the registered domain. And so this is how, MLSEO is designed really to be to work. All these things that help you out are going to be there from just, after you pip install mlseo, which you can't do yet. You'll be able to do it soon. But from mlseo import all, and then you'll have a bunch of functions. Or you could, abbreviate it the way pandas does, import pandas as PD, maybe import mlseo as ml or something. But no, that's going to conflict with machine learning. There will be other packages doing that. So anyway, you get the idea. We're on a good roll here. Let's continue the copying stuff over that I use from my everyday affairs, skipping the cruft and going right for the good stuff. So here's extract title. That's in case you're sitting on top of HTML already. So it seems to me that before we start with these extract functions, we're going to want to actually do some sort of crawling thing. So I'm going to look for something that I might have in here to assist with crawling a lot of pages. You'll see how bad my sites are because I'm going to be clearly crawling my own sites in order to extract links. That's a good one. Def homepage returns a guest homepage. That's an embedded function. See, this is the opposite of like object-oriented programming. This is procedural, imperative programming, and these are nested functions. There's a def extract links, but inside of there is a def homepage and a def guest page, which are things that I don't see myself using anywhere else except in cases like this one when we build links now, or when we extract links. A page goes in. Yeah, it's just a way of getting back all the links on a page. It's really good. It's a good starting point probably. Because like doing basic crawl stuff almost isn't worth writing components for at this point. Because it's so easy to do. Yeah, I do believe I'm favoring HTTPX these days. And I will, in fact, start with links. Now, I'm going to start by documenting how to use SQLite dict. So what we're going to do here is import the get function of HTTPX so that I can use get on its own, kind of standalone. It's a little trick to make things as brief as possible. It'll be part of my imports now. And I guess technically all I really have to do is my imports, my functions, and then these things are up. So I guess I'll use my test URL, and I will do that response, resp equals get test URL. Okay, why didn't it like that? Oh, get address info failed. Did I put a bad URL in there? Oh yeah, I left a www in there. That's not www. Okay, so now looks like a good time for an assert. Type resp. Okay, so we should be able to do this. And this is what, when everyone cries out, you should be doing testing. It could be as simple as this little bit. Assert that equals what type just showed you. Yeah, HTTPX is not defined because I'm just importing the get thing. So I suppose I'm not going to be able to get away from it. It's okay to do multiple inserts on the same object. I like having get available just there like that, but I can also just import HTTPX. This is something you find yourself doing a lot, getting the whole big object just so that you can run little assert tests like that. See, my shortcut to get just the word get for really nice use took away the ability to do this, because this object was not imported, just the get method of that, and the object type is a sub thing of this. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put HTTPX in there. I'm going to go for explicit. So the principles I've been talking about, explicit is better than implicit. So if you have to imply it, it's bad. If it doesn't have to be implied because it's spelled out, it's better. But that makes things longer, so it's not 100%. But you can see it's the second item down on the Zen of Python, so it is important. Beautiful is better than ugly. Explicit is better than implicit. Simpler is better than complex, and so on down the line. So, you know, don't let errs pass silently is somewhere in here. Errs should never pass silently. That's the one I'm very guilty. I love my try, accept, pass bad form. So Control-Shift-R, you remember that reruns, or that clears everything. You can run it from the top. Another keyboard shortcut would actually be quite useful. We're going to get rid of this line because I don't want the abbreviated version now. I'm going to keep it for extract because there's like no other use I ever use this for. So you make those decisions in programming. And there, that's all solid and good. When is a good time for a commit? It's always a good time for a commit. So I have my first page load in there. Git commit using get to fetch page. Push. Oh, once again, I forgot to clean NBS. Oh well. So you can see the pattern that's building up here. I'll probably sprinkle documentation in, but I am building the library here of what gets exported as the package. And so far it's just the imports and a series of functions that will be turned into a file here. core.py. And you'll recognize stuff in here. There's our, now I didn't do a build lib again since I added the HTTPX, so you won't see it there, but there's our imports. Here's our functions. You can see there was a cell break between the imports and the functions. It's no big deal. They get exported sequentially in the order they're found. And there's our two functions. So this is how a package gets created from a notebook, right? Isn't that awesome? This is too distracting, you people. I'm going to put here, and you can see where I'm doing my my overall documentation. Okay, so I've made great progress. The framework, and I hate framework. That is framework. Everything's a framework. nbdev is a framework. Jupyter is a framework. I've made the pattern by which, you know, all my future SEO deliverables will be produced. That's what it is. It's a pattern of production. All the things that I need are going to be in here, and I just did 2 of them. Good URL, extract apex. Let's keep going. I'm on a roll. This is so important to my work, and I use this stuff every day, and I just am doing really a cleanup job, and I thought I'd share it with you folks. Good URL, extract apex we got. Oh, I was thinking about a crawl. Now that I have the example of how to fetch the page. Oh, I wanted to do the database. You got to store that data before you do crawls and stuff, right? So when you have data that was fetched with a URL, you've got a perfect key for a key value store. So you can see I'm just creating copy and paste bare bone examples down here. Copy and paste bare bone example with SQL dict a.db because it's a database as db. There's a little bit of ambiguity because this occurs here, but at least you get an idea of it's the same kind of ish thing. This is the file handle to the file. And db with the key because it was just fetched. Key is test URL equals with a single equals because it's assignment and not equivalence or comparison operator. That's the thing about Python and many languages that one must be alert for. And it's going to be the whole response object. And then it's going to be with a commit. First of all, I'm going to delete this so you can see the beauty of the context manager. There's no file locks open. SQLite is a wonderful tool. So first I'm going to do a before and after. I probably still have that file location open here. There's no a.db here. I wish this was bigger for you to see. But if I were to execute this, it would create that DB, but there'd really be nothing in it. It won't be very big. And when we look at the a.db, it's only 12 kilobytes, right? That's 12 kilobytes right there. Now, the second we do it properly with the commit down there, db.commit, all the bytes of the actual object are going to be put in there, and there it is at 120K. It went from 12 to 120. 100K got added on based on the home page of my site. So now we can always get back that one page crawl whenever we want, right? So this is a pattern that's very important. Now I'll remind people that that file is on the hard drive, okay? So another one of the big imports where you don't need the whole thing, from pathlib, import path. Path is just so like everything. Now you'll notice that I don't use these autocomplete. So if I were to type path here, do a dot and hit tab, it takes forever, but it's there. Jupyter has it built in. It does a competent job on certain things, standard library objects, of showing you what the options are. There are other things out there, namely Cloud9, I think? No, it's not Cloud9, it's something 9. And there's Kite. So, tab 9. Kite and tab 9. Which are really wonderful autocomplete, AI-driven autocomplete things. But if you don't have them installed and you're working on standalone Jupyter like I am, hit tab and have patience. Is it 2 tabs? Yeah, something like that. Look, it's even colorized better than it was the first time. So it's not ready for prime time the way Jupyter right now has auto completion built in, but it'll be optimized. It'll get better. So look at all this wonderful stuff on path. So we're just looking for is file, right? So we want to just make sure that there is a file there, and we know what it's going to be called. It's going to be called db a.db. String object has no attribute. Yeah, so it's a string object there. So can't let it be a string object. Oh, then once it is a real path object, then it has the method is file. And so this open close parenthesis, for people who are new to Python, if you don't use the open close parenthesis, it's a function floating around that has not been executed. It's a reference to the existence of a function, but not the invocation it is it has not been called. It is a callable. When you have a callable, you put parentheses on a callable, and it comes back with, you know, the result of running the function. So hopefully you saw this coming. Assert true. So I'll probably put these asserts. They should be in the same place where the code is run that causes the assert to actually happen. So when you put in a test URL, it'll check that the test URL is a good URL and that a registered domain is equal to that. So cleans it up a little, get rid of that. Same with here, we fetch the HTML and we check that it's a response of the right type. We do the database creation and we check that the file exists, right? So 3 super duper useful things with SEO and code coverage as we go on testing. It's not one of the unit test or py test, but you know, nbdev is a game changer. nbdev makes things like testing this easily accessible to people like me using just the assert statement built into Python. How cool is that? All right, so this has cleared the way now for a crawl, right? Because we're sitting on, still in memory, you'll recall that resp is sitting there with text in it. That's the HTML of my page. Now we can p-print that to give it a little more. Oh, pretty printing has been turned off. Okay, so Jupyter stuff. This is weird. So now pretty printing has been turned on. I'm not exactly sure how to wrangle that, but now we don't want to use the pprint command. It'll just attempt to pprint. I thought it would. But if I do pprint here, oh, if I do print with pprint turned on, yeah, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. So it gives some concept of form, you know, trying to display it correctly so you can see your links and stuff. So somewhere in here, the body begins, end of the head, beginning of the body. Once the body begins, it might find headlines and it might find links. There's a bunch of embedded links. Say I wanted to extract all those links off the page. Well, there's easy one-liners to do that, but because so much goes wrong in those one-liners, I have extract links here somewhere. Here's extract links. And it probably has some dependencies. You see I had to write these sub functions just in order to have this function work. You can see good URL is used in there. So yeah, without further ado, all right, it should be available. It's called extract links. It can take a page of various types. It can take a page of already fetched text. I guess it can't take a page of already extracted text. I think it can take a whole object. No. I know it can take a URL. I just want to try and make it work on the stuff that's in there. I might have some tries I need to edit out of here. Oh, yuck, yuck, yuck. Okay, so while this is in this state, I am going to make this slightly less kind to errors. You can see why do not let errors pass silently is part of the Python credo, because you get stuck going dur dur. And if I really need this really liberal try passing, I'll put it back in later with more meticulous checking of error types. What don't it like? Response object has no attribute decode. Resp.text. Extract meta link is not defined. There we go. Okay, so this is what I was hoping for. It can be fed a block of text. You know, something that extract links should be able to take a URL as input, or it should be able to take a bunch of text that has links in it. So either one should be acceptable. But now we see I've got to start pulling over other things that are part of this function's dependency chain. So somewhere in here, I extract the meta links, which is probably important on guessing the home page. Make a grab for the canonical somewhere in here because there's a home page grab. Yeah, somewhere in here is going to be stuff that guesses what the home page is, because you have to build your links back into absolute links, even if it's a blob of text that you're given that may in fact have relative links inside of it. Oh, long story long. Extract meta link. I think it was extract meta link it was complaining about. There's a few meta extractors. Yeah, extract meta link is the one that it's complaining about. So here that one is. That's also got a silent try pass, which I'll strip out. It's not really order sensitive. I'm going to put it above extract links. I'm also going to run black because I like me some uncompromising code formatting. Watch here, these lines between these two. That becomes 2 lines instead of 1. That's one of the types of things I can point out. I'll put in my extract meta. I just do a return. It does the correct spacing now between that function and that. It's nice having black doing this work for you. Take out the excessively permissive try. Okay, so now let's extract those links. Okay, next thing, bee soup is not defined. You definitely need yourself some bee soup in this type of work. So I'm just checking if there's any dependencies. Yeah, the HTTPX dependency. Pip install HTTPX -u. Okay. It complained about bee soup. So I'm going to get my beautiful soup import. It's another one of those places where it's nice to abbreviate it. Because it's so long otherwise. From BS4, import beautiful soup as bee soup. How could you not want to just refer to it as bee soup? Beautiful soup. For those not in the know, it's a Alice in Wonderland reference. The Mock Turtle, I believe, sings it. Couldn't find a tree builder with the features you requested, LXML. Do you need to install a parser library? Oh, this is a really interesting one because the LXML parser that I'm asking for in there is very much tied to the operating system in the background. Ugh, I wonder if there's a pip install LXML. First, let's see how I'm asking for it. Yeah, it's the parser I'm asking for when I create my soup. So we're gonna see how to solve that dependency because I used LXML for a reason. LXML. See on Linux on this side, I would just go apt-get, LXML something, and it would install the operating system component for it. But over here, we're going to go Windows LXML. Yeah, it looks like you might be able to do it with pip install LXML. We're going to try it. It looks good. A lot of these binary type things used to have a really bad story about getting them onto your machine. Oh, now we can import it. Did I have to import it? I guess so. If you pip installed it, you have to also import it. No, I am not importing it. Okay. So this looks like a time. Okay, cannot parse. Yeah, install, collecting LXML, downloading, installing collected packages. Okay, you may need to restart your kernel. Bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. Drum roll, please. Bada boom. Okay, that's fine. These are now some of the other URL lib things that I did not add to the imports. So we would just add those. That line becomes longer. You can see how anally retentive I am about keeping those line lengths flowing. I don't even think that's necessary again. Let me just go right to this. There it is. There's all the links off my home page. If you wanted to capture them, instead of just calling the function, you can go, links equals, and then you can get a length of your links, 713. I can get a length of the set of the links to see if there's any duplicates. Yeah, 713. I'd probably dedupe it. I'd probably make some assumptions about the kind of use this is going to be put to. Now we can do a sequential crawl of every one of those links, because those links are each URLs, right? So links. If we wanted to see, just say, the first 20. There you go. So slices can let you see things out of the list, and there's a bunch of URLs out of the 700 and some on my homepage. It's a lot, but it is it's a good test. It's a good test, right? So I'm going to want to crawl these, but I do know now from my vast experience with this sort of thing that doing it without setting a user agent to a common user agent is really just asking for it. So I'm gonna do one of my next tricks, but this is for so much stuff. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna do that kernel restart, save it again. I'll try and not forget the nbdev clean nbs to make the git commit not have all that Jupyter Notebook metadata garbage. Git commit added extract links function. Git push. See these number of lines, 101 inserts for, that thing that I just did. Sounds about right. When these numbers are out of hand, like 1,000 inserts for something that is only 100 lines, that you forgot to clean NBS before git commit. All right. That's a really, really good place to be. But I do want to get one of my next tricks in here before I wind down this, because I am running out of steam a little bit. This is a really good start, and I'll probably finish this on my own, but you get an idea of how everything is really coming together. There's going to be references to user agent, because I know I do tricks about cycling user agents and stuff. So see how this get has headers equals user agent, that means I have a function called user agent. It's not just user agent I'm searching for. It's def. There's my def user agent. Def user agent loads this file off of the drive, which still should be in there because I started out in a directory where I was doing this sort of work, but I don't see it. So I will copy it from the other directory where I know it exists. And it's basically just a list of user agents. And this, each time it goes through, it shuffles and cycles and make sure it uses each user agent just once. Copy. There's going to be some imports. I'm going to need shuffle, and I'm going to need cycle. I can see that shuffle and cycle are things that I don't have in my namespace on the other side. So let's put these in first. Again, I'll put it above because it's the kind of thing that's kind of required for these crawls and everything. So not really, but it's good practice. So that's in there now. And oh, look, it didn't do. Oh yeah, because black isn't running. I so often refer on. It's bad It's bad to rely on things like that as I go and do it. Okay, so I need to move that user agents file over from that other directory. cd .. Well, I can do it right from here. cp .. SEO kata user agents to current directory. ls. There's my user agents file. Git add user agents. Git commit. I will save on the commit for now. Okay. Oh yeah, the pip install LXML needs to be put in the instructions of installed stuff. It's amazing that works on Windows. I remember the day, back in my day, LXML had to be installed with an installer from the operating system. Okay, now we're going to need that cycle, and what's the other one? Shuffle and cycle. It's going to be from random import shuffle. So I get shuffle and rand range. I'm just going to get shuffle for now. I'm going to build this up. If I need rand range, I'll get rand range. Cycle. Cycle is going to be part of collections. Yeah. Assert Tools and cycle. All right. So how do we know it's working? I will use it as the headers. Open, close parenthesis, otherwise it's just the function. It's got to be the calling of the function. Test URL is not defined. Oh, test URL, I just didn't execute that. Bool object is not iterable. Well, we gotta check that user agent is doing what it's supposed to. Oh, it's returning false. That's not what it's supposed to do. Namer from file is not defined, so from file. Okay, so I used to use this from file thing, and I just don't like it. I'm just going to use the extra made up API layers inside of perfectly acceptable API layers. So you would just use path in here, and it's from where you're at, so you don't even need the // it's just path of that. Look how much simpler it becomes. Object of Windows path has no length. Okay, so I'm checking for length somewhere. Oh, I see. Oh, from file loaded the contents of the file into that. Yeah, okay. I'm going to go look at from file and see how I'm doing it. From file, open file name as, split on the /ends. Okay, you know what? This is fine. This is fine. I'll take it. Put it near the top because it's kind of, even before you test a URL, you're going to want to get a URL out of a list of files. So I'll get rid of the silent passing. It's going to create a lot of errors on using this stuff, but at least you're going to see what the errors are and handle each of them correctly. So now I want to change that back to find file inside of user agent from file. From file. Now // I'll keep that because I can see why that was probably a good idea. User agent. Each time I run user agent, it's going to be a different user agent. Always a good idea. Now we do that. We do that. We do that. Look at some links. But now that I have that user agent, I'll do this final stupid data trick to do a nice big crawl to let you see how awesome this is. Clear ls-la. That A file is at the beginning there with a certain size. It's I gotta remember what these sizes are. That's 122K, I think it is. I'm gonna confirm that from the operating system. 120K, yeah. So when you see 120, okay, so I'll just use both methods to make sure you understand what's happening here. See all these keys? These are all keys, easily fetched. It's not going to be sequential mode, but I will fetch all the HTML of all this stuff for link in links, and I'll just do, say, the first 5 at first. Print link. Right, so I'm just printing out the first 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 5 elements. This is slice notation. This is the colon that belongs to a loop. I know it can look a little strange to look at. If I just did 5 there without that, it would just do the characters of the URL itself. You need to use slice notation, not list notation. So it pops, not pops, but it slices things off a list. So hold on to your hats. By putting that inside the context manager, it now has access to a persistent dictionary. by putting this in here, the response will be against the item in the list. I guess we'll still print it so you can see what it's up to. I guess the print command should be before the attempt to fetch the data. Now you're sitting on the data, but it's not committed to memory anywhere. There's no reason why you can't do db using the link as the database key equals what was just responded, db.commit. That's on just the first 5, but still watch this file size grow. It was 120K. Now it's 176K. And I'm sure as we're sitting there, it will grow larger. I will double check it on this other thing here with another ls.la. The A file. There it is. 180K. So it went from 120K to 180K. Right? So database stuff is happening there. And you want the HTML of any of that, the same process that goes in takes it out, except instead of for link in links, instead of links, you can say for key in DB, print key. Here's our database keys. You want data populated using the key, data equals db.key. Why everyone doesn't work this way is just beyond me. Now, there's not that much there, so if you wanted it in memory, I can make a table, and then I can table append the data. So it'll just be a table holding a bunch of response objects. Now, one of the things about these is, and you can see I've got a lot of moved permanently. I've got some site maintenance stuff to do. This will help me clean up my site that I kind of ported over from WordPress. I pulled it off of a WordPress instance on a cPanel host, HostMonster, Bluehost, and I just pulled it over to GitHub using some convert scripts. And the way it happened, the pages are being hosted just fine. That's some tag cloud. Each of these really is where it's going, but it's still some 301 redirect being reported. Not great for SEO. So I'm going to have to solve that. There's also data transform things that could be useful here. You go, oh, it's great to see all the response objects, but what about the URLs that led there? Shouldn't that be a key object? Well, why not build something in memory that's very much the equivalent of this, that won't need the context manager? So instead of just table appending, you know, you can say a dict. And instead of just that table append, you can go for that dict, the key is the key. See the similarities between the data is the data, and see the similarities between key value pairs and dictionaries, SQLite dictionaries. It's really amazing. So now, in addition to table, which is still there, I didn't take that out, you also have a dict, which is that same data, but now there's URL keys on it. So if you ever wanted to, better word for a dict would probably be crawl. That is a crawl. Okay, so now the nomenclature is better. Let's look at that crawl. And if you wanted to get the data out for one of these, we can go a dict and put in a URL like this one here. Oops, got to be in a string. Quote needs to be inside that. It can't be a double quote. There. Text. That's loading off of the hard drive there. That's not, you know, going back out to the site. That's just using the URL as the key in a database to pull the text that was pulled with something very similar to the requests, HTTP for humans package, but a newer version of it, which is really friendly towards concurrency. So I'm using this a lot more often than requests these days, for the concurrency, which we'll get to soon. If you want to see timing of things is really important. I've been doing that on some other things lately, although they're proprietary. I don't want to pull them up. I'm just going to do Python timing code execution. There's a really simple method involving the time method. Super important, super simple. No reason to use these timing things. That's basically it. So we'll do from time import time. Start equals time. Where the crawl is actually occurring. This is where the crawl is occurring, because see, there's the HTTPX GET. Because I did the shortcut import, because I hate underscores if you don't need them. The new time minus the start time. That's an end, if you ask me. Print. That was time minus start time. So end minus start, right? Because end is just going to be a larger number than start. Okay, so we'll see how long it takes. Okay, it must be print end minus, oh, equals. All right, so almost a second to fetch 1, 2, 3, 5 pages, right? So I'm just going to take this out, and we're going to crawl the entire thing. That's going to be 700 some. So yeah, boom, crawling 700 pages, crawling 700 pages. Let's watch that file size get bigger, maybe, unless the redirect doesn't contain the text of each page it's visiting. Those 301 redirects might mean that the data is not coming back, and it's just a lightweight redirect. We will know in a moment. And make sure that commit is in there on each loop of the iteration, and that it's storing on a different key name. For link and links, it's printing out the link, so we know it's doing a different one. Resp equals of the link, a different user agent each time. I know that because it only took 5 seconds, or 1 second to do 5 pages, I know you're not going to be waiting here that long for 700 pages. This is also crawling a GitHub IO thing from, Git, from GitHub. So high performance. There's not a problem crawling 700 pages unthrottled against GitHub. I should have probably exposed the counter so you can know what line it's up to, but I didn't. And there, see, it's getting the data. That's 2.5 megabytes now. I know that when you get the moved permanently code, you still get the data back. I thought you did. It's just slow in updating the file sizes here. I've noticed this before. Even with the commit, you don't necessarily get an updated file size here on every commit. It's actually even more reliable to just do another one of these and get the new sizes. See that? That's up to, must be 3 megabytes. Hasn't changed on a few of those. And there, it's done. 132 seconds it took, you know, just over 2 minutes. Crawled all those pages. We'll see the URLs come out again, but instead of the URLs, you know, you can see the URLs up there. Let's see the length of the data. Instead of printing the key, I'm going to show how many bytes are on each page. That's length of data and .text. The length of the view source, and that's going to be a print. And for this one, I will pop out an enumerator that pop out an internal key. Enumerate db. And so now I can print I, comma, and you'll see nothing apparently. Okay, let's not try and print the data. See if that's where it's having the error. It's not on that. I'm going to get rid of these. We don't need to build these data structures. I'm just going to load the data out. I'm going to go back to the simple demonstration. I got too fancy too quick. I'm not even going to load the data. I'm just going to spin through the keys. Oh, the keys are coming back as tuples. With, oh, because of enumerate. Yeah. Because I'm using enumerate. Oh, this is interesting. This is something I learned. Enumerate's working a little bit different than it used to. Well, no, it always worked this way. If you enumerate without giving a variable over here for your counter, you get back tuples. You get back tuples where the first position in the tuple is your index, and the second position in the tuple is your piece of data. In this case, keys. It's not really the data pulled out, it's the primary, it's the key of the database. If you put a variable here like I, comma, then enumerate will target that to I. So you'll see the URLs printed. But if you wanted to print the internal counter plus the URLs, it would be like that. And there we can see ourselves stepping through all the data. You'll see all those 700 some rows there. So we know, and this one down here is distracting. We'll get rid of that. But this is a one-page crawl. In fact, all this stuff is distracting. We'll get rid of that. I don't want this to stay around in there. But this one is quite valuable. We will populate the data. And make sure we don't get an error. Yeah, we don't get an error. So I was getting that error just because of the enumerate that I wasn't handling correctly. So we will print the URL, pull the data, and then I'll pull the data first. And that way I can print 3 things: the length of the data, and now we'll be Oh yeah, the length of the data's text. Right. So now you can see how many bytes. That I is confusing things a bit. The I should go first. Okay. So for that URL, it's that many bytes. For that URL, it's that many bytes. And you can see how generally big the pages are. And already diagnostics comes in. This 162 is so small and the same for so many pages. That's probably something wrong from the response code. And if you want to see what it is, you know, all that is sitting there now. Oh, well, see, the DB goes away once it goes outside of the context manager. The data doesn't, but the data is only going to represent the data from the latest iteration of the loop. So if I wanted to look at that data and I wanted to see what that text looks like in there, yeah, it's just a moved permanent message. So I only have the data for just a couple of actual pages in here, and the rest I have this moved permanently message. So I got some work to do on my site. They serve, the pages serve. However, the URLs that I'm using on the page are not the real URLs of the page. If you wanted to see what the real URL is, you could copy one of these, go to a real web browser, and then watch the redirect. Oh, it just adds a slash to the end. That's easy. So I just need to add slashes to all the internal links. And that's a really big downside in SEO. You really have to pay attention to that stuff. Having your internal links made without the slash, and even though the web server knows to add the slash and to do the forward, that's a weak link in the chain. That is not a good idea. But at any rate, you saw me do a one-page crawler, right? So that's how easy it is. If I clear all outputs, let you see what this code looks like. Is all it is, right? So this is why everything becomes really light and breezy in SEO. Doing things like from scratch really becomes a lot easier than one would think once you have the correct support functions there. All your expressions of like crawl a site and everything becomes very small little programs, highly readable stuff. And that seems like a pretty good stopping point. I will check if anyone has been typing to me. Sorry if anyone chatted. Hey, one person said something. All right, hello you. And yeah, no one's watching right now. But there have been 56 people who tuned in. Most people watched for about 30 seconds. All right, yeah, so my last step then is to git status, make sure that there's nothing here that I need to add. No, nothing's in there that really should be added to the repo. Git commit, oh, git, that was nbdev clean nbs, git commit, one page crawl example added, git push, and that's pretty much it. I mean, this is going to be my starting point for myself. I'm going to continue this copy paste job, build up the extremely bare minimum examples down here, probably add some headlines or documentation of what each step is. But essentially, by the time this is done, this is going to walk you through a whole audit, an audit of a whole family of sites potentially, not even just an audit against a single site, but every site that you have access to in Google Analytics or Search Console is the way I'm sort of imagining this and planning this. So it'll iterate through your own account that you're using to log in. We'll get up to OAuth soon. We'll get up to a Google login. But whatever accounts your Google login has access to, I plan on walking through all the analytics and all the Search Console accounts that it has access to. And you'll probably want to create a subset list of that because there's so many views. There's so many views in Google Analytics, but certainly the Google Search Console. Maybe I'll use that list raw and go out, crawl the sites, get statistics about it, bring stuff back, all kinds of happy stuff. And you'll see I've got, you know, keyword stemming and keyword extraction and all kinds of goodies in here for some work that's coming up. I'm going to have to do a big URL remapping project, which will tap right into some of these functions that I'm showing you here. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon, and don't forget to subscribe and follow me on GitHub. GitHub.com/Mik, M-I-K-L-E-V-I-N. It's my name, but with the E of Mike dropped out. There's my GitHub. See ya.